Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 59 of the Titanforge podcast. My name is Ratnus, joined by Tettles.
Hello, what's up, dudes?
Hello, welcome. And Trell.
Hello, welcome.
How was your expedition around the country last week?
It was great. I went through Colorado, saw a bunch of natural cool things in the world, and came home.
Very, very, very cool. And just in time to get home as well for the push week. The push week to end all push weeks in all likelihood. Wow, there's been a lot of keys done this week.
I scheduled a vacation on Tyrannical Week for a reason, actually. It's kind of funny to say out loud, but that's how bad the balance is.
Yeah, I mean, even people who don't go as far as scheduling vacations, like you'll see the same people streaming beta one week and then live the next week and then beta the next week, and it's like, okay, when it's Tyrannical on live, that's when you go play beta.
Oh yeah, I got to level my beta characters after the character wipe now.
Ooh,
great.
Dude, my monk's 53.5. Where you guys at?
What the hell? I 0. I haven't character copied anything yet. I haven't started since they wiped characters on whatever it was, Wednesday.
Same.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Yeah, I've done very little beta, I'd say. I've done 4 bosses of raid testing, which is not that much, and my guild is mad at me for not doing more. But also, it's so early in the day, man. It's so hard to wake up for that.
Yeah, 3 p.m., or I guess it's 1 p.m. for you.
Yeah, it's an hour after our podcast start time, and let me tell you, it is hard to wake up for the podcast sometimes.
It's once a week, man.
Yeah. Anyways, the bosses, though, on Castle Nathria that I have played have actually looked pretty good so far, I'd say. There's been a couple of things that have concerned me about them, namely, like, wow, there's a lot of, like, random bleeds and
the propensity
stuff.
to bleeds, yeah, that's what I was about to say.
Which, like, it's flavorful. Bleeds. It's flavorful with Castle Nathria, but it makes you think that it's like those bleeds are just in there to make you feel good about picking Kyrian, the Covenant that gets rid of bleeds. Yeah.
There have been a lot of King's Honor friends tweets on Twitter as
right, because you can play Dwarf and get that as well.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I think it will be probably something that you're going to choose, like, for that raid. I have a feeling I'll be playing Blood Death Knight tanking, and I have a feeling it'll be between, like, I mean, maybe we'll go Alliance. I don't think we will. I think we'll stay Horde, and I think I'll probably still play Night Fae with the way the balancing's looking right now, but I'm not sure.
You guys do have extra budget to spend the money instead of purchasing a mage to go Alliance.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
You can budget that in this time.
You gotta factor all those various cost benefit analyses against each other.
I guess,
of course, our gold income has pretty much.
I was just about to say, well, it looks like Gallywix has been dead now.
Yeah. So for those who haven't heard, there's been this new exciting drama in the WoW community. Gallywix, the big boosting community that was responsible for, I'd say, the majority of, like, high profile, guilds boosting and everything like that, got taken down for RMT. So that source of income for our guild, source of gold income, is entirely gone. It's kind of unclear, though. Maybe the prices are going to go up now because it's, Gallywix isn't there, so maybe we'll be able to make a little bit more gold, but just some of our raiders will have to actually do some advertising themselves. I don't know. For the most part, we're just kind of we're kind of taking it easy the rest of the expansion anyway.
As weird as it sounds, it does prove that using a middleman is more beneficial for your guild, because we've seen guilds in the past get caught up where a couple people are RMTing, then their whole entire guild gets banned out over a couple people doing RMT. So it looks like using a middleman may be the way to not get your whole entire guild banned for using dirty gold.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like Gallywix was in a similar situation, right, where there's, like, a few people doing RMT, and then for the most part it was heavily not allowed and cracked down upon. But it really, I mean, from Blizzard's perspective, it really only takes 1 or 2 people profiting RMT wise off of an interaction for them to, like, crack down on the whole thing, which makes sense, right? Like, that being said,
fuck around and cut $5.6 billion from the WoW ecosystem across EU and NA.
Gold, right? Not dollars.
Or dollar, whatever, gold. Just casual things, right?
Yeah, we're definitely, like, we're not getting nobody's getting their most recent payout from Gallywix, which
angry.
is a feels bad for sure. That's some sales that we gave out for free, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I definitely understand Blizzard, attacking RMT, right? Like that's something that they want to go after. I don't think that the moral argument against it is particularly sound, given that you can do the same thing by paying Blizzard. So like, I think RMT is bad and you shouldn't do it because you shouldn't risk your account getting banned. But like, really, the same thing can be done, right? You can pay the same amount of money for the same amount of gold and services and stuff, right? It's just, or not the same amount of money, but you can pay like 50% or twice as much to get it from Blizzard. So for that reason, I don't think that the outrage that like,
you want a point of reference? It was either $42,000 or $7,000.
Okay, so 5 times as much, but still, still
I'm
it's
not gonna lie, that's a pretty big difference.
like it depends a little bit on the case, because sometimes when you're buying RMT gold, you're buying it from hacked accounts, right? And hacked accounts like that's there is a loser in that case, right? Like somebody has had their account hacked and lost their gold, and like it's really annoying and fix it, and that's like a real cost imposed. But I don't know, this kind of RMT, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't get close to it. Once you hear that there's RMT happening, you want to just get right out of there. You want to make sure that you're not involved in it yourself because you don't want your account to get banned. But I do think that there's a little bit of a moral, like if you're morally opposed to that, but you're okay playing the game that has the WoW token in it, I don't think there's actually a huge like. It's like a movie theater, right? Like movie theaters don't let you bring in your own food from outside, but they do let you buy food there, right? So like clearly there's nothing morally wrong with eating food in a movie theater. It's just the movie theater wants the monopoly on it, and like it's fine. That's their prerogative, right? That they want to do that to make money, and they need to do that so they have the overhead to open their movie theater. So in that sense, like that's reasonable. But like, it's not like the act of eating food in a movie theater itself is the inherently wrong thing.
I don't know. I would say don't get your account banned. Don't be stupid, but
Right.
at the same time, don't fucking attack people on Twitter for getting
right.
banned.
That's I guess my main thing is if you ever find yourself composing a hateful tweet on Twitter about somebody that like really ever, but especially if it's somebody that you don't know, like if you just heard that somebody has done something bad and you are now joining a Twitter mob, just reconsider that. It's just not. Okay. It's not a high upside proposition.
However, on a different note, Blizzard does do a good job of making sure that there are no like scams or hacks by implementing the WoW token as a way that you can purchase gold legally and be backed by the like insurance and protection that you will not be scammed.
Right. I mean, I would still prefer to not be in a world of the WoW token. Like for me, I don't like pay to win elements of games. So I think that the WoW token, like I prefer games that don't have
the WoW token,
particularly when there's like when you could pay $1,000 and buy WoW tokens and then buy BIS corruption at the start of the tier or whatever. Like, man, that rubs me the wrong way. I hate that. That's that's one of my least favorite things about the game right now.
I think I agree, except for like other seasons, I think it was fine. Just this season when there's so many benefits to BOEs over last season's, it was a problem.
First patch of a tier is always like that too. Or first patch of an expansion is always
expansion,
like that too.
True.
Yeah. Where there are always the BOEs that are like super important, double statter rings and stuff. So it's always going to be like that, I think. For first patches, rather. Not for, like, corruption was a little bit different.
Yeah, a little bit. All right, so let's talk a little bit about what we are going to talk about today. We have a pretty cool show ahead of us. We're going to talk about the history of BFA Mythic Plus. We've got some examples picked out of how different boss strategies have evolved from the start of the expansion to the end of the expansion, and we think it's going to be really cool. There's going to be some useful stuff that you can learn from this, maybe going into Shadowlands, where you can kind of get yourself primed for thinking about how a strategy can be improved. But mostly, I think it's going to be just interesting and fun, a fun little trip down memory lane. So that's something that we'll be doing with our show today. Before we do that, though, I want to take a quick look at the Io Leaderboards just so we can talk about the keys that have been done this week, because there have been a lot of world firsts done this week. So I think that might be a cool thing to take a look at. So we have the World First 31 done this week by Team Battle for Champion from China.
BFC is also over 7K.
Yep. The World First Two-Chested 30, which was also a junkyard, done by Team Skyline in China.
Surprise.
A boatload of other 30 junkyards. World First Toldagor 30. I think that was done by Fem's team first.
Yeah, Fem.
Yeah, 3 days ago. World First Freehold 30. That was done by... It was either Nerf or Battle for Champion here.
I think it was the BFC team. I think they got it first.
Yeah, both of those groups have done that key this week. And then Skyline has as well, but later. And then other than that, we have 3 dungeons now that have been done at plus 30. Do you think we'll see any more this week, Trell?
Temple
yeah,
Central
I think-
doable.
I think at least one more. I'm not sure which one it'll be, but probably at least one more dungeon. Temple may be doable. Shrine, I think, is doable. It's just really scary.
Oh yeah, Shrine. Oh, I think you run a problem on Volzith though on 30.
Yeah.
As long as I don't
Yeah.
know, being able to face that boss is really rough.
I doubt if it's possible on 29, it's impossible on a 30. I think it can be done. I don't feel
know
like
if
it's like a hard
Tal-
breakpoint boss like maybe Siege is.
Atal's 29, I think.
Yeah, I think Tal is capped at 29 this week, maybe.
I think Under Rot's also capped at 29.
Yeah. Workshop and KR, no way.
Ooh, yeah, the
28.
dude, miss me with those. Has Workshop 28 been done yet? Or sorry, not Workshop. King's Rest 28 been done yet?
I want to say, yeah.
Yes, it has. Okay, yeah, it was done by Skyline.
So. Yeah, I was like,
6 hours ago. 6 hours ago.
Oh, Paul, congratulations.
Goddamn.
Big grats to them. I guess maybe it was added to Radar IO 6 hours ago as well, though, because it's of course the Chinese teams have the different way of getting on the boards. All right. So cool. Let us advance to the next part of our show, where we thank our supporters over at Patreon.com. Let's see, Tettles, would you like to do it this week?
No, Trell gets to do it this week, man.
Right.
Trell has the red.
I'm gonna go get a water bottle real quick, but go ahead and start.
I'm gonna defer to Trell.
All right, man. Our Patreons are so wonderful. Shout out to Paul of US Proudmoore of the Guild Titanforge Podlinks, Ahar of US Proudmoore, Anastasia of US Proudmoore of the Guild Titanforge Podlinks, Riley Critty of the Guild Titanforge Podlinks, Basement Captive of the Guild Titanforge Podlinks, Gopher of the Guild Titanforge Podlinks. Man, there's so many. Macblade of the Guild Titanforge Podlinks, King of Skills, Zuko, Jaw, Drunk Sweet from Legion of Lemmings, Argent Dawn EU. I wish I was Dragon's Dino Pillow. Blue of Emerald Dream, Chromed, Seraphicus, Trekkie, Thra March Hair. I think that's a typo. The March Hair.
Yeah, that's a
Nice job, Tettles.
Regulus, Nevernude, Chewy, Demonic Raging Apparitions Terrorizing Northrend over Shadowland, or DRAT. Oh, Dratnos. It's an acronym for Dratnos.
I see.
Rude Dinosaur, Lufer, Give Enhancement Shaman's Grappling Hook of the Elements. Wow, that'd be sick. Mugatu US Sargeras, Sin of US Kil'jaeden, Das Boot, Better Mage Lead Than Tal. Brought to you by Dratnos the Excel Wizard, Brad Ceratops, looking for a hard carry to help Stevenson with his 15 weekly no lever.
ooh, monk ass.
That's so toxic, man.
Necris, Havoc isn't a low skill spec, only low skill floor. Shadow Priest can pump if you chain pull. Just give them a chance. Nevok, my guild won't rename to Lamones. Evie, Frosty K, new meta. Gino is still not 3100 IO and needs to get good.
Oh,
least they aren't
he's
just-
still not
Dude,
3100.
I wonder if that's up to date, though. I wonder if that's up to date now that the new week started, right? Like, I wonder if that person would come in and update us and based on the new IO of their friend.
Next week? No.
Yeah.
It'd be better if we just left it at 3100.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
At least they aren't destroying conduits. Take the Light of Protector and Enraged Region off the GCD. Agreed. Big agree as usual. Whoa, Bonesy, no verse. Gaelic, no trick. Tettles is a wolfkin. And I unscheduled a Tettles Flame.
That's
Blessed.
so weird, man.
Blessed.
Imagine doing that ever.
All right, looks like according to Radar, Gino is 3675 now.
Wow.
Okay,
Hell
so
yeah, Gino.
for those who missed it, at the very beginning, Trell was reading about Titanforge Podlings. Apparently, there's been a guild created on Proudmoore Alliance or something.
US Proudmoore.
Yep. On the Alliance side. And Dratnos woke up yesterday or the day before. He goes, bro, what the hell did I just wake up to?
I just go into that channel in Discord and just,
Stream on
just like
chat.
50 messages. What is happening here? But yeah, Titanforge Podlings, it's a nice new Alliance side guild, presumably existing to then funnel us honor from War Mode, I'm sure, is the main feature of it.
Yeah, our patrons just have a nice community going, and they have a lot of stuff they talk about on our Patreon channel. If you guys are ever interested, good group of people, and they also made a guild now. So
Yeah.
big shout out to them.
Very cool. Okay, all right. Let's move on to our tip of the week segment. My tip of the week is now is the time in the expansion to start thinking about all of those flasks and potions and food that are in your bags will soon be worth 0 gold, the BFA versions of them. So you have a little bit of time. The price is already dropping on a lot of them, but sell them now. Sell all of them now, probably, except for what you know you'll need. And if you're not sure if you're going to need flasks or potions, sell them now, and you'll be able to buy them later for cheaper if you do end up needing them later in this expansion pack. So for Mythic Plus players, maybe keep them for this week and then sell them at the end of this week because this is push week or whatever. But for everybody else, I would say now is the time to turn everything that you can turn into gold because that is going to carry value better into Shadowlands.
So, Dratnus, you're trying to tell me that my potions of prolonged power that are still in my bank are not worth anything?
Those ones in particular have been surprisingly
Wait a minute.
somewhat still useful.
Maybe they're good in Shadowlands. Maybe the stats will be back to where they're good again.
Dude, there's so many weird
know.
things with the level 60 stuff, like weird level 60 requirements that are still, respected or scaled around on beta. I'm sure they'll fix most of them, and they'll fix the ones that stay into live as they get discovered as well, but it is
I'm using
weird.
Ghost Elixirs unironically in Mythic Plus right now from like Cataclysm, so
yeah,
stuff like comes back and in and out of metas all the time.
Yeah, that's true. Although, the odds that like the main stat flasks from BFA will be better than the ones from the next expansion like ever is pretty close to 0. It's more when there's like a weird effect that you can get from a potion, which I don't know if any of the BFA ones really qualify as that. I don't think they do.
I can't think of any off the top of my head.
Maybe there's the one that gives you like
Foot or some
crit
shit?
rating, right? It's like 20% crit while you keep attacking one target.
Oh,
yeah, that's
maybe.
true.
That one, that's the kind of thing. Although I think that's crit rating, not crit chance. Maybe I actually forget. Either way, those kind of unique effects. Yeah, those kind of get added to this long list of like weird stuff that could be good again in the future for some stupid reason. But for the most part, I think it's safe to sell them now and then buy them if they ever do become important. All right, Trell, what's your tip of the week?
My tip of the week is also related to Shadowlands. I think since there's so many new baseline abilities for every spec out there, as well as Covenant abilities, like usually Covenants give you 2 different active abilities you have to press. I'm adding like 4 to 5 keybinds to my UI. I've had to over the years here and there just like add 1 or 2 keybinds, but this is like a big addition of new spells and abilities for every class that I play. So I recommend finding something easy for your left hand to hit or your right hand on your mouse, or mix the 2. And just like having a couple extra keybinds in advance.
I used to not have an MMO mouse, and I had to buy one for Shadowlands because Moonkin's getting like 3 or 4 new buttons. I'm like, holy fuck.
Yeah.
I don't know where I'm going to do with these.
Some of the new buttons are ones that you can maybe get away without keybinding, but I don't know. I mean, okay, first of all, every class is getting some buttons you don't need to keybind. And then there's some that are like questionable whether or not you need to keybind them. I'm just
going to spellbook Cyclone.
I wouldn't suggest spellbooking Cyclone, but like there's all kinds of like Primal Strike or whatever coming in for Elemental Shaman. It's like
Eyes of the Beast and
never
shit.
Gonna need this, yeah, those kind of things that you're never gonna actually need that key bound. Even if you do want to cast it for some weird utility situation, it'll be out of combat. And
there's a couple like really on the edge ones, like Death Coil for Blood Decay. Like costs the same cost as Death Strike, but it's also, I don't know. Maybe there's like one situation out there that I would use it, so I'm like really on the fence of whether or not I should keep mine.
Whenever you turn undead or whatever. Also, isn't Death Coil Rain?
So that's
yeah,
one,
but you also have Death's Caress.
One use of it though is to heal yourself when you Lichborn.
Yeah, whenever you Lichborn, you get insane healing from it.
Which is
true. Yeah. See, that's like there's like a bunch of little things like that are new.
I think you could maybe macro casting Death Coil at yourself or casting Death Strike into the same button, and Death Coil will only cast yourself, I think, if you are undead. I don't know. I need to test that to see if you could get away with making that one button. We'll see.
It's a good thought. Yeah, there's gonna be a lot of stuff like that, I think.
Yeah, there are a lot of things though that like you can probably get away without keybinding them and be okay. Like, I mean, even stuff that is particularly on like alts or whatever, you're probably okay without doing it. But yeah, this is a really, really good tip for anybody that actually cares about being min-maxed, which, I think there's a lot of people that at least care about being able to be min-max. That's the whole thing about covenants that we talk about all the time, is that like you're not necessarily going to hit 100%, but you want to be able to try.
Yeah.
Blizzard's flagship title, World of Warcraft, sponsored by the Corsair Scimitar.
Yeah, no joke. MMO masses are a big quality of life increase. There are a couple different ways that, like, one of the things you can do with it is you can just have it do buttons 1 through 12 or whatever, 1 through dash on your keyboard, and then you'll have duplicates for like 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5. That can be nice to relieve, like, you can put frequently pushed buttons on those, and then do half of them with one side, half of them with the other. Or you can actually get extra keybinds out of it, out of those button spots. Either way, you're going to get extra keybinds out of slots like 6 through 12, because nobody hits those normally on their keyboard. But I think
typically echoing your MMO mouse to like numpad 1 through 9, and then like 0, minus, and equals on the normal keyboard, something like you would never be able to reach with your left hand, And then you can also add double keybinds with shift plus those keys on your mouse as well. So you just have like unlimited keybind options.
Yeah, that can be really good. Some of those weird keybinds, like thinking about like shift plus all your mouse side buttons, if you're not already using that, you could do that for like target markers, right? Shift 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 could be marking your target with each of the different target markers. And like that's a pretty useful thing to keybind that isn't a rotational or whatever. You don't need to add new rotational stuff there too. And that can be a good way if you're looking for some way to get that kind of weird keybind in, or if you're trying to bind like Hearthstone or mounts or whatever that, toys that you want to use, or flasks and food even.
Just bind F1 through 4.
F1 through 4 are markers for me, actually, but not something I would press normally.
Oh, no. I think that seems reasonable to be marker binds.
All right. Tettles, you have a clip of the week, which I realize now I haven't opened. So let me go open it.
Right. Oh, okay. So for those who don't know, Dorky has been streaming.
Tomobor. Yeah, Dorky.
Dorky.
Tomobor.
Dorky Bear is his...
Okay, dude. Whenever somebody first told me he started streaming, I was like, twitch.tv/Pikadeer. I'm like, it's like, this page does not exist. I was like, did I spell it wrong?
Yeah, you renamed to, this is a really wise rename. If you're gonna have, like, you want your Twitch name, if possible, to be close to your character name so that people will recognize you. That's absolutely useful. Okay, so let's take a look at this clip here. This is the classic Shrine of the Storm. Oh, big weekly no lever.
This is the unfortunate Shrine of the Storm eel reset, and it may or may not murder your healer.
Oh, Monka.
If you have the volume on, you can hear Growl just screaming.
I didn't turn it on, no.
Don't worry about it.
You know what's funny
screaming
about this? First of all, I'm really happy that Dorky's streaming now. It's awesome to have the top bear streaming, seeing his POV. I just had to guess in Season 3 when I played bear for a little bit. But second of all, that room, with those eels being the problem that they are with pathing and they can't get up to the platform easily, is actually fixed already in Blizzard's system. They have a different room for Crucible of Storms. It's that exact room, and it's flat ground. And they just didn't apply it to the dungeon. Like, that's just always bothered me.
Yeah, the raid version of Crucible is such a better room. It's part of the reason for that as well is that the swirlies, there are a lot of swirlies on that fight, and it would be really BS if those were invisible from the tentacle slams are sometimes.
Yeah, just like the tentacle slams.
But it's like, why is it okay that the tentacle slams are invisible half the time? I don't know, man.
I don't know. Sorry, rant over.
It's another case of M+ being just a bit of a low priority for Blizzard. But one of the upsides of M+ being a low priority is that sometimes there's some really cool bugs that you can come up with and use to kill bosses that it will last the whole expansion and they never fix. So we have some examples of those here. Wow, Tettles, you were lagging up the storm.
I know.
Yeah.
Ignore that. Okay. Yeah, I'll fix it in a second.
No worries. So we're gonna start with our main topic now, which is we've got a bunch of M+ boss fights that we're going to talk about the history of how strategies for them have evolved over time. And normally we have our show notes available for patrons only. If you want to look through and see all the stuff we'd written down to go into the show. For this week in particular, we're just going to link this for everybody in the description and in the Discord and in, I guess, everywhere that the show is associated with. You guys should be able to get a link to this show notes document as well. For anybody who wants to go and actually watch these clips themselves, we have a bunch of clips from a bunch of different YouTube channels and Twitch channels about all these different boss fights. So That's what we like to do anytime we have a big like clip watching show of different kinds. So, all right, with Skycap and Crag, very start of BFA, or there was a strategy that we all use where you actually would tank him outside of the arena, right? Where
Yeah.
yeah, you're just like, I don't want to get hit by any of this boss stuff or any of the bird. We'll just go stand away from it. And it was kind of like the edge spots in the Shrine of the Storm second boss, where you can pull it like just a little bit where the tornadoes won't hit. And people did that for Skycap and Crag as well. This is a very common strategy. So here we've got JB's perspective of that from 2 years ago now, the very start of the expansion.
It feels so weird that people were tanking it outside the arena. This is also before Skycap and Crag started to one-shot you as well. So season 1, one-shots were mostly balanced. I don't think anything actually would one-hit you 100-0 in season 1 because they had tuning on health pools relative to damage numbers so well defined. So
yeah, my favorite thing about this strat was there was a spot that you would put a ranged player that didn't know the dungeon very well. You would just put them outside the arena as far as possible, so they were completely safe from all mechanics and they didn't have to do anything. It was so funny.
yeah, bird bait, bird poop, literally anything. It's everything.
Yeah, I mean, you can still kind of find those spots, and you'll see some people do this in season 4, where like a mage gets a pretty preferential spot that doesn't really have mechanics, but it was a lot less of a thing than it was in this season. Yeah, season 1. So
Preferential means that they just don't stand in the arena, but they still have to bait the poop. So
yeah, well, there's a spot where the mage doesn't have to bait the poop, even like under a little hut, that you'll see people use this season.
oh shit,
Yeah.
you're right. The chow spot.
Yeah, the chow spot, exactly. Which
The princess spot. Yeah.
yeah.
As you can see there in the season 1 video with JB, they already understood the bird a little bit, so they were baiting the poop as the bird flew around in a semicircle behind the group there.
Mhm.
But that boss fight has evolved slowly over time.
Yeah, one of the problems with this strategy that we were just watching was that the boss was just going to hit everybody with his shot every time, right? And this wasn't a huge problem in season 1 because we weren't doing keys at a level where this was too one-shotty. Like you could just live. But
I think the main thing that changes strats like that is that from season 1 of an expansion to season 4 of an expansion, as an example, probably like double the amount of abilities at the highest level will start one-shotting the group because of scaling. Like healers can heal more, and so the mobs deal more damage. So even though healers can heal faster, it doesn't matter if they start one-shotting. So you have to start adapting to that new stuff, which is what you'll see.
Yeah, it's healable, but it's like Trell said, it's really not able. You're not able to survive the one shot at some point.
right. All right, so they hotfixed him so he would instantly reset. Like his arena got a lot smaller, so you couldn't really drag him out much at all of the main area. That was a hotfix that came in after people were doing that for a while. So then we got to the new strategy in what season is this? Season 2 of just tanking him in the arena and then using target safeguards to protect your people from getting one shot, because this was when we did start to get to a level where things were getting a little one shot. This is a 24 tyrannical freehold from young Tettles here.
Look at Tuttles, dude. He's like 17 in this.
No.
But yeah, so your tank could have a macro that cast at their target, intervene or intercept or whatever, and by just spamming that as Crag was about to do his shot, he would either be targeting the tank, in which case the macro wouldn't have any effect, and so it wouldn't put anything on cooldown. He would target somebody out of range, in which case the macro wouldn't have any effect. Or he would target one of the other melee, and then the tank would instantly intervene to them and prevent them from getting one shot by Crag. So this became the new strategy in season 2. It's pretty similar to what you'd recognize from newer seasons, where the boss is in roughly the same position, except everybody is getting hit by the shots, basically, if the shot does target them, except the tank then intervenes it to prevent them from dying. This was a lot of damage on tanks, but Protection Warrior was Omega OP this season.
You weren't able to intervene every single one, but don't worry, you only played rogues anyways, so
yeah, you alternated it with Feint. Yeah.
Feint and intervene.
Are you wearing the same sweater as that clip?
No.
Oh my god, he might be.
It's a different shirt.
Damn.
Dang.
Sorry, chat. Next
that
time.
Would be such a cool That would be such a
That'd be
cool
weird.
little Easter egg.
That'd be weird.
That would be such a
Nah.
cool Easter egg, man.
I still have that shirt. I haven't worn it in a bit.
All right, so the next strategy that was developed was the line of sight strategy. And there were actually 2 different spots you could do this on this boss fight, where you would tank it next to some of these planks. And there are ones on kind of both sides of this little... Oops, that's not the right scene. On the right side of this little mast here. And then whenever the boss was about to cast the powder shot, your group could just line of sight right behind and not get hit at all, which is extremely, extremely powerful way to avoid the Azurite powder shot being one-shotty. There, you can see it happening now, where Morning goes and hides behind that, and that it causes the boss to just... The boss does some weird stuff, but it's really, really,
Cool.
really powerful.
So the boss does weird stuff because you're still an eligible target. So he'll try to target you. He's like, "Oh shit, your line of sight." And they'll try to recast again, and he can recast it on you. And he'll be like, "Oh shit, you're an eligible target," and they'll just be like, "Nope, never mind." And he'll spam start recasting until he reaches an eligible target that is in line of sight.
He doesn't actually cast anything though. A lot of the time,
What doesn't cast anything? He
tries
raises
to,
his gun like he's
pull out his gun
trying
and
to.
you'll see it.
Yeah,
It'll appear in his hand, and he'll be like, "Oh shit!"
And then he
no
puts it
target."
back down, and he fires it again. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, which can be a problem with the strategy. Actually, was if you had somebody who was like cloaking and standing out, and somebody who was lining, the cloak could expire before the boss actually shot because it kept trying to shoot the person who was lining. So you did have to be careful of that. It could do some weird stuff to the cast sequence, but it was still. I mean, this is an extremely, extremely strong way to trivialize a mechanic on a really, really, really hard fight. Otherwise. All right, and then our final strategy that eventually kind of was discovered on this, I actually forget who did it first, but our clip here is from Lashka on Twitch, is use of either Book of the Unshackled or Darkmoon Seesaw. And this is a toy that you could use to get small enough that you no longer actually needed to get to a spot that was line of sight. The vertical pillar, you could just use that toy and hide behind this horizontal pillar instead, and you would have line to Crag, but he wouldn't have line to you. And so if the shot came out on you, you just get the best of all worlds. The shot would still fire, so it wouldn't do any weird cast sequence stuff. It wouldn't hit you, and this is a perfect strat. Yeah, but it's a little fiddly. You had to learn it, and yeah.
The problem with the season 2 and the season the problem with the season 3 spot where you would actively line is that your melee would do probably 60 to 70% of their damage that they could potentially do because they have to line so often. So melee were not super sick in Freehold that season.
Yeah,
I think it's interesting. It went from season 1 where multiple people would get hit by the shot and they would live and just require healing, to season 2 where one person would get hit by the shot but they would need an external, to season 3 and 4 where literally nobody can get shot ever or else they're dead. Only the tank can get shot.
Yeah, but even the tank. Man.
Even the tank. I have to rotate externals too this season, but I think it's interesting how well the strategy has evolved over 4 seasons. I think every boss would do that eventually if given enough time.
Safeguard Prot Warrior, that shit actually kind of died to the shot because you would take so much damage.
Yep.
Yeah, it was I mean, that season Prot Warrior was really, really, really OP though. Man, that was so OP season 2 Prot Warrior. Even compared to now.
Yeah, it was top damage every key. It was crazy.
All right, we have a couple of other fun little tidbits from Freehold history. Painful Motivation. Do you guys remember the history of this thing?
That was a fun one.
Loosely.
Discovering it on beta of BFA was really exciting. We were like, oh my god, this ability killed the mobs for us. And I think at the end of BFA, now we're all a little jaded by it. Like, man, some stuff in these dungeons kills the mobs for us. We don't get to play our class. Painful Motivation, I think, is a good middle ground on it, though. I think it's the way it is now is correct.
So here's how it used to work. It used to be uncapped, and you could just hit any number of targets with it. You can see that happening here, where every single one of these enemies was all grabbed up and then hit by the Ring of Peace, and then all of them got hit by the Painful Motivation. Ooh, lots of spawns of Gahoon, though.
Yeah, like all the
guys. Yeah.
Good times.
Mm-hmm.
That's hilarious.
Extremely powerful. You could I think for a while you could Painful Motivate like Ludwig as well. and just kill him with a painful
You
motivation.
can still do that one.
You could painful motivation bosses.
Yeah.
That's the logical conclusion of the history of it is you just spam polymorph on him to heal him back up and let him just painful motivation over and over again, and you take him around. Unfortunately, we don't have any clips of that, but that was a wild time.
Yeah, then they nerfed it so it could only hit the Ravager and 2 other nearby targets, and also like not the bosses. And that has turned it into. I mean, you still use the Ravagers; it's still extremely powerful to have 3 mobs die for free. And you see some finesse actually used with like getting the right targets near the Ravager. There's actually some difficulty there. Teams mess it up a lot, but it's a very different thing. And I actually think it is in a really good state right now. I think Ravagers and Freehold are like you don't get much count from them. It's hard to get the count from them, and it requires some execution to do it. If like you need to do it quickly or safely or both if you're really good.
And it's only one pull, right? It's it's not like Spotters where it takes the entire key to like really utilize it correctly, you know?
I mean,
you know what's weird to me? I think the Plaguefall barrels are bad design, but I feel like the Ravager and the Plaguefall barrels are kind of similar.
Yeah, I mean, so the downside of the Ravagers is that like it's just right to do them, right? Like if you're not doing at least those front 6 mobs that die for free to the Ravagers, like your route sucks. You know, that's just it's just wrong to not be doing it. So I do think that when there's optional stuff like that in the route that is just like clearly like here's free count, I can see a rebalance. Yeah.
There's a lot of barrels. There's not just like one pile of barrels that you can optimize around like Ravagers. There's just a bunch.
That's fair.
Right, yeah. That's the difference between this and the spotters and the barrels and the cannons, right? It's just the amount of, like, there's a hard cap on how much you can get from Ravagers unless you try really hard and do polymorph stuff. But even then, that doesn't work this season because the dot ticks so hard.
Yeah, I mean, the barrel at least is also capped, right?
Maybe. Yeah, but it's more impactful. Each barrel hits 5 targets, right? And there's a lot of them.
There's two piles of barrels.
Says 4. Chat says 0. I'm not sure.
Okay.
There's 2 piles of barrels. It's capped at 5.
So you're gonna kill 10 mobs with barrels total?
Well, the barrels can hit one another, and there's like I think it's a pile of 3.
Okay, so you're gonna kill 30 mobs
total. There's piles of 1, 2, and 3. Yeah, exactly.
There's piles of 1, 2, and 3. But they can hit other barrels, and they commonly do hit other barrels.
Okay, but like best case still that is like 6 barrels is 30 mobs getting hit by it, right? If you did perfectly.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah, so that's a lot more than 6, right?
Sure.
All right,
9.
Or 9, I guess, is in Freehold. But the backpack has a lot more difficulty to use Ravagers with because like there's going to be 2 mobs that don't die to Ravager.
Yeah,
in that backpack.
Exactly.
So like that you have to fight those no matter what, or unless you're doing it at the end of the dungeon, in which case that's a cool strategy as well. So yeah, I agree. I think the Ravagers are a good way to have stuff die to itself. Although the reason it does die to itself is because of a weird interaction, right? Like painful motivation isn't supposed to just one-shot mobs. It's supposed to cause them to lose 3% of their health per second.
That's dungeon.
It just scales. Yeah, it scales with key level. It double dips because they do more damage. So they're doing like 800% more damage or whatever in a high key. So instead of doing 3% of their max health, it's doing 30% or whatever of their max health per second. And that means they die really, really quick.
Yeah, it is bugged. But it's funny.
Yeah, it's because it's a max HP damage. It's not flat damage that keeps up with their health. It's max HP damage, so their health is going up, but that doesn't matter. It's just the damage is going up too. So it's really it is a weird interaction that I don't think is intended, but it do be that way. All right, another cool. Okay, I guess let's move on to the turtle.
The turtle is a fun one.
Yeah,
this was a strat in season 1 only until they fixed it, but it was a strategy that someone found eventually where you could start the dungeon on Mythic 0, go kill Ludwig, and then this would be available in the key right after what I'm doing here in this clip.
Yeah, Trothak was just hostile back there. You just fight him. And you
What's up, Trothak?
You didn't have to do the pig or Ludwig. You just did Trothak. Man, this was OP. This was so stupid.
It was so good.
For a month, I held out and I was like, I'm not going to be in any group that does this. I think this is an exploit. I think people are going to get banned for doing this. And then obviously that never happened, and I learned my lesson that like I was just giving up.
How does this always happen? So currently on Live Realms, there's that shit in Underroute where you kill the double faceless corruptors at the end of the dungeon, and you could just jump down into the pit. Like you don't get the port, so you like can take fall damage, but now you can just jump down and get the 4 free the for-free count from the Awaken mob, and you get to skip the Double Faces Corruptor that's at the end of the tunnel that normally starts the thing. How does this always happen where you complete the event in Mythic 0 and it's just active in Mythic Plus?
Yeah, I mean, it's because Mythic Plus starting a Keystone like manually flags a lot of stuff in the dungeon, and they need to make sure that they are resetting all the right things.
That's fair.
Just doesn't always do it.
Yeah, there's actually another one in King's Rest. For several seasons, I think there used to be a wall at the beginning of King's Rest that you had to wait for with RP, unless you did the RP right before the key at a specific time and then activated the Keystone like as the RP finished.
Yeah.
And then you didn't have to wait 10 seconds. It was just like a little time save.
Yeah, I remember that. They just made that door always open in M+ now, I think, to get around it because they couldn't bother actually fixing it.
That was so funny.
That was a funny one, yeah. So that, man, this was the thing where I learned to not try and be somebody who doesn't use these sorts of things, because Blizzard doesn't care. They're not going to ban anybody for using it. They never have in M+, and if you're just
so weird.
If you're just like trying to tell your group that it's an exploit and that you shouldn't use it, you're just actually just giving up Io for no reason.
That's cringe. Right?
It was so, like when I did it when I was first doing it, I was like, man, this is such a big bug. Like, this is such an exploit, but like clearly the rules are different in M+, and it neither got fixed nor penalized for so long.
I never did the temple backwards thing. That one was like too extreme for me. I knew they would fix it as soon as I found it, so I was like, screw that. I'm not about that one. The turtle thing was like a medium exploit though, right? It was like, might as well do it since every other group's doing it.
Right. I mean, every high key run of temple is using the temple thing now. All the the ones above 28 are using it. Or the new one. Sorry, the temple shroud. Yeah, which I think is in a pretty similar strategy.
Yeah.
The temple,
that one's really good.
So for those who don't know, there was the temple back pulling thing. I don't know if that's in our list here.
It is.
It is? Okay. Yeah. I guess we'll talk about that later then. So stay tuned to hear more about that. Let's talk instead a little bit about Harlan Sweet. So this was, man, do you remember in season 1 when it was really, really important to do everybody really cared about doing the cannonball barrage in a super precise way? I don't know how much groups still do it this way, but back in season 1, there was a lot of like rigid movement in like a triangle.
Oh yeah, with the triangle strat, and like you have to be stacked up. You don't understand. This is the most important. Blah blah blah. And you're like, what?
Well, so I think that was so scary because people would often pull the middle pack in season 1 because they weren't used to the boss fight like we are now.
Knocked by the Swift One Saber and shit. Yeah.
Yeah. Now ranged players are a lot more. They have a lot of history on this boss. And they know how to not pull the middle pack even if they get knocked by the saber all the time. So they could stand out and take care of the ad safely. But yeah, back then we did this triangle strat like really rigidly, and I think it was better for our ranged. They had less movement at the time, but I think now if we did the season 4 strat, it would have been totally fine.
Yeah, so that was, I mean, Harlan Sweet started out, the very first time you pulled it, just the cannonball barrage just covered the whole area, and you were just like, man, this sucks. I mean, I guess the very first time you pulled it, you probably just pulled the mid pack, and then the boss is really easy, but doing it in the corner to avoid that mid pack became the meta really quick, because that mid pack sucks.
Oh, I don't think that I do not remember that mid pack ever being pulled in Mythic Plus.
Yeah, it wasn't until MDI people found the best way to do an MDI. We had that strat when the boss at 60%, you get near it, you run in right after sabers, and then you bomb it together, and it like doesn't really do any damage to the party if you do it right.
Yeah.
And so now we've seen that popularized more and more after MDI.
So the cannonball barrage actually doing damage to friendly targets is a part of, I want to say it's like a part of the achievement for that dungeon, is like bombing the grenadiers or something stupid.
There's like treasure chests you have to bomb with it, I think. Yeah.
Something like that. And you're just like, the first time that I heard that you could bomb the packs of trash and it would do damage to them, I was like, there's no way. And then I heard that it did substantial damage, and I was like, oh shit. And then it's just like, that was season 3, I think, at that point too. And you're just like, holy fuck, it kills everything.
Yeah, so here's the clip from 8 months ago, the first time that we saw this on the live servers, to our knowledge, from Anda's stream. This was
because we saw it. It
was in the MDI before
for a long time. Yeah.
I've definitely been doing it for like 2 years.
Yeah. It's a really powerful strategy, especially if your group has MDI experience. And yeah, you would like group up. There's a racing flag on the ground. Do you guys remember racing flag?
Those are great.
Yeah, there's a lot of in this season, people were using racing flag to target it with the trinket, so it would go and hit twice. that trinket from Eternal Palace, but there was also Racing
Yes.
Flag Shadow Steps back when
So
you
it
could
was
play Shadow
used-
Step.
I want to say it was used in MDI for like a full season before it was ever actually implemented on live. And I think that this team was one of the only teams that I saw Cannonball Barrage the mid pack on live. And this was like, there was like, I want to say 7 freeholds done on 25 in season 3, and this was one of them.
Yeah, it's
And
really.
it was, I think it was
really
the only
impressive.
one that used the Cannonball Barrage of mid.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a really good pull.
it is something that like Trell's saying, like, you know, groups have done it on live at different times, but like being like that meta strategy that actually does the like top level freeholds thing for the longest time, freehold at the top level, particularly before they nerfed its timer, you just never needed to do that. It used to be freehold was 36 minutes, now it's 33, and you have a lot less time. Man, back when you could do Ludwig and have 3 extra minutes, or skip Ludwig and have 3 extra minutes, it was such a forgiving timer.
Oh my god, pre-hold was so free.
Yeah. All right.
So stupid.
Still is.
Yeah, it's still a really easy dungeon relative to the others. Let's see. Let's advance to Shrine of the Storm. Do we want to start by talking about Aquasur? Do either of you have anything to talk about first boss shrine?
No, I think that's generally stayed the same. People
Yeah.
just pulled more trash into it over time as I got more comfortable with the fight.
One of those kind of easy fights. Second boss fight, however, is one where there's actually 3 different kind of strategies that have been used. Actually 4, I would say.
Playing out in the middle of the room.
Yes.
Oh, actually, you know what? There was something with Aquasir. The old Templars, their protective aura was not interruptible. I don't think, was it? I think it stayed on no matter what, but you had to position them outside the boss's hitbox.
Yeah, because there's
to
a really
protect
big
the
hitbox.
slimes for the sub rogues.
Yeah.
So the sub rogues would use the slimes on that fight all fight long, but the Templar would protect the slimes so the slimes wouldn't die. It was actually a really cool interaction.
God, I miss sub rogue
Yeah.
strats.
But you had to tank the Templar just outside the boss's hitbox so it doesn't also protect the boss.
Shrine was such a sick sub dungeon. You could have sub ads on like every fight, basically. Second boss fight as well. You could bring up Tidesage Initiates. You'd shroud to the second boss, and then you'd start pulling 4 packs of Tidesage Initiates in and telling everybody not to AoE them, and your sub rogue would just start going off.
Yeah.
Man,
Don't
that was
AoE.
awesome.
I'm doing ethical damage.
Yeah.
Play around me.
Yep. And actually,
It's like
I
Fire
believe
Mage,
that
but
this
worse.
is a Subtlety Rogue clip that we're about to watch right now from season 1 from Trell's YouTube channel. And yeah, you can see them doing it right now. Look at this. These ads coming in, and Morning is just going to start ascending on single target as a result. So very, very, very cool strategy.
Look at us fighting the boss in the intended area. So silly.
Yeah, so
Ethical.
this is
God,
the
you're
old way
so
of doing it. You
ethical.
would just move around the room and dodge the stuff and try and not get hit by it. We actually saw an MDI strategy kind of subvert this. Method EU at the time, they just let the boss cast and they just healed through it and didn't move, I think. Do you remember the MDI when they did that?
Yeah. So,
Yeah, I do remember that.
basically, Gale Caller Faye's cast sequence, if she would be casting tornadoes, she'll also start casting her, I don't even remember what the name of their AoE ability is, but if she's supposed to spawn the tornadoes, while she's casting the ability, she'll cast the tornadoes after. However, if you have enough of the casts go through, then she will eventually just not cast the tornadoes at all, so you can have your platform free.
Mm-hmm. And that can be that was something that we saw in MDI to make it easier, and you just healed through it. But I don't think they would. I don't think it was like
It was like 4 casts. It was something ridiculous that you can't really take.
You can't really do it on live. But yeah, this was the old strategy, just moving around the room, focusing down Gale Caller Faye. How young we were back then. Then there became a new strat of tanking on various spots, including the kind of, I guess, the new meta spot for doing this.
Yeah, I have a clip of that. The new one. I don't have the clip of the old cliff that some people still use, but everybody used in like season 2.
The dorky cliff, the one that he still uses.
Yeah, let me get this one set up.
Wait.
Okay, so
Dorky?
I have a clip of the far left spot, playing. This is
that's what I use.
This is the I would say this is actually not the most common way to do this boss right now. Yeah, this is the far left spot in the boss room, and it's a spot where the range and even the melee can avoid most of the tornadoes, and the rest of the group can dodge fairly easily. There's another strat kind of mirrored on the opposite side of the room as well, which also has similar effects. It's a little bit easier, but a little bit less damage. You're going to have a little bit lower uptime, and a little bit more of the wards are going to heal people because there's less room to maneuver the bosses and still be in range of melee.
Trell's POV, people started doing that in season 2. That side was used pretty heavily in season 2, and you had people stand outside of the arena. And then I want to say in season 3, it was either Team D or Battle for Champion. They started using the cliff side, and they also used that little rock that you can stand on to not get hit by the tornadoes, and they would just like kite back and forth between. So they were the first people to do the other cliff.
All right, then after that boss went down, there was actually a lot of different strategies we've had over the years with what to do about the trash after second boss, and this has really evolved a lot. Let me show you a little bit of what it looked like in season 1 to be doing this area, and I remember doing this as well.
We killed all 3 ritualists.
Yep, we would just kill those. We would just attack them.
I started watching and doing research for the show notes, and I was like, I wonder what people did after Tide Sage Council in season 1, and I was just baffled that everybody was playing the fucking ritual.
Yeah. I did this 5 Enforcer poll yesterday, by the way, on live, and I hadn't done it for like a year and a half, and I was like, man, I remember doing this every time we did Shrine.
Yeah, this is so wild though, because then afterwards, people kind of developed that later on that like that trash was just awful, right? And you would just skip the whole thing, and you would.
Ritualists are cursed.
Yeah,
They're
ritualists
so
being like very inefficient and not like their bad ratio of health to count, and not possible to be pulled with other stuff really because of how kick intensive they are, and how hard they are to move. So
and how bad we were at the time as well.
Yeah, the strategy turned into Death Run instead, where you're just gonna yeet on through there and die, or this would be where if we were playing the correct faction we would shadow meld, but we are not, so we had to deal with battle reses and stuff instead. So you just run on through, everybody would. This is before Awakened, which completely negated the need for any kind of strategies like this ever, but back in the good old days you actually had to run through. Yeah, this is a season 2 move. And yeah, you just get through, die, and the rogue has gotten through and vanished, and we actually got a B-res coming out there, so that's all that needed to happen to get the skip to work.
If only we knew to walk over the pixel that resets all the mobs by then.
Yeah, so I think I have a clip of that as well that we can watch next.
That's the next one.
Yeah, so this is the further evolution of this. This is the first time I ever saw this clip from With D on Twitch, and this was incredible evolution of the strat here. That one pixel on the stairs that you walk over there, the mobs would just snap to it. Some of the mobs would snap to it, and you would just walk through, and then they would all reset. Everything that you were in combat with would reset, and you just skip this whole thing without needing to do any trash whatsoever or deaths. This is
1 minute.
So absurd. Yeah.
I have a question. What did groups do in season 2 that didn't have a B-res?
You just ended the key. I remember running out of B-reses. Like, we would finish Tide Sage Council, and then all of us would realize at the same time that we had to use our last B-res in that fight, and we were all just like, heck, the run's over.
Oh, actually, you want to know? I actually remember what people did. The tank pulled the fucking enforcers and that ritualist off to the side, and the rogues got the Resto Druid through, and the Resto Druid masked everybody in season 2. That's what the strategy was.
I remember trying to do that, and it was not a high success rate proposition. You could also use the engineering knife, which is a 50-50 res out of combat.
Yeah, we tried that too. That's right.
Yeah, but yeah, people pulled like basically all the true sight mobs to the side and had the Resto Druid run through with the rogues.
All right, let's talk a little bit about what happened on Volzith at different times in history.
This is a good one too.
this is really
a really
funny.
good one. Yeah, season 1, you could just get that healer damage buff on anybody else, and the way you would do this is your healer would just outrange the boss, and then Volzith would just give it to your boomkin instead, right? It would target a caster, right?
It target anybody.
Okay.
It could target anybody that's not the tank, basically. It could target all of your DPS players.
Dude, I thought I remembered it always going on our boomkin, and there we just saw it going on boomkin as well.
No, because you wanted it on your boomkin for the first set because they were playing Lively Spirit and did just stupid fucking damage.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So, anyways, you just started stacking up Whispers of Power on your whole group, basically, and this boss it would melt if you just did the mechanics and didn't take any damage
never mind.
ever.
I'm being told that I'm an idiot and that it prioritizes ranged.
Okay.
Prioritizes people that have mana as a resource. Okay.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that's what it was. I remember, I don't think I ever got the first one, but I would be an eligible target for like the second or third. I think it was the third as a tank. And if it went on the tank, I had to be insta dispelled, and we just like had to waste a Whispers of Power buff.
Yeah, that was really bad RNG whenever that would happen, and there's still somebody who wanted it out there.
Yeah.
So to counteract this, Blizzard just made it so it never casts on anybody who wasn't a healer spec ever. So only the healer could then get this buff for the rest of the expansion. But yeah, this was extremely, extremely strong before.
People weren't killing the ads even in season 1. By the way,
Which ads?
the ads that get the boss energy.
Oh yeah.
People. Okay, so you got so many phases on Volzith. I want to say in that YouTube video they get like 6 phases or something absurd. So, but they would take. They took the short phase at the very beginning of the fight. Then they took the long phase with Bloodlust. Then they took like the half energy phase.
Mhm.
Then they took another long phase, and then they took like another half energy phase. I was like, "What the fuck is happening?"
I watched that back too, and I'd forgotten, but that was like a world first 21 shrine. I'm pretty sure in that video in season 1, and the reason why we had to do that was because Lust didn't come up until like the 4th time you fought Volzith, and you wanted as many DPS buffs on your party as you could by then. So like all 3 DPS players had the buff. And I think Jam also had it as a healer by then. So you had 4 with Lust, and so the boss just finally just melted at that point.
I think it's hilarious, like how much HP you had to do to that boss, and like how many phases you actually got relative to. Do we 1 phase this? Nah, probably not. And it's like a 26 or something, right?
All right, our next
Yeah.
the next evolution strategy, besides just then when the healer buff got changed, was the invis of the far side ad, which this is something that's fairly new. But if you had a group that either all had shadow melds or all had invis or whatever, you could just press that button and the far side caster in the DPS phase would just stop fighting you, right? So you can see that they're about to do it here. This is from Petco's stream, Petco on Twitch. And they just kick the first 2 casts, and then everybody feigns or vanishes or invises, and then the far one just resets completely and does not need to be kicked. Really, really, really powerful strategy on this boss fight in the high keys that we're seeing this season.
Yeah, I was actually doing this strat last night, and Thalamir, the rogue I'm playing with, vanished on pull for his opener twice, and so we had to wipe and reset. Yeah,
that's so weird, man.
He was very mad at himself. It's okay.
That's so weird. All right, let's move on away from Shrine of the Storm. Something I'm always happy to do. Anytime I get to go away from Shrine of the Storm.
Oh, you're not a Shrine fan?
You know what? Shrine. I'm a medium Shrine fan. I'm actually okay with Shrine. Okay. I'm not a huge Shrine hater. My most hated dungeons are actually Siege. Siege is my most hated dungeon. And
well, congratulations, Dratnos. We get to move from Shrine of the Storm into Siege of Borealis.
Yes, this is a very common push week experience for me. Is Shrine of the Storm into Siege of Borealis, into Shrine of the Storm into Siege of Borealis. We've all been there. Season 1, last boss is Siege. That last boss platform. Do you remember what used to happen here? You could just not fight that demo at all on the last boss platform.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yes, it was the opposite of what it is now.
It didn't do anything.
I forgot about this too. I had to watch my old videos.
Oh, no. There was also something else where you just fucking burned the boss at one point too. They also fixed that.
Oh, you just directly attacked Big Goth.
Dude, we saw that in a weekly no leaver in our push week coverage. Do you remember that, Tuttles?
Yeah, it was Petco and Fem. They had a 13-minute Vic Goth.
But yeah, this is the season 1 strat. Blizzard then made that demo always get in combat with you when you pulled the gripping, which it wasn't initially coded to do, and they like quadrupled its health so you couldn't skip it as well. So that demo has like quadruple the health of any other demo. You can still commit gripping, but it is a sketchy strategy. You sometimes need to do it, but
only God knows why that they made that demo have 4 times the HP. Because if somebody doesn't know that you shouldn't attack the far side gripping, if you get in combat with the far side gripping, then you'll have more demos spawning, and that first one still has 4 times the amount of HP, and you're like,
now there was a way. There was a way that you could get it killed very quickly, even when it had 4 times the HP, briefly. This was
briefly.
Very briefly, yeah. Let me see if I can find it.
It was like for 2 seasons that people did this, man.
That's briefly in M+ turns. Do you remember this? Ashvane spotters one-shotting tentacles with their if they were bolstered with their barrage. Or whatever that thing's called.
Yeah, you would carefully position the spotter circles to hit the tentacle 1 time, and it would one-shot the gripping or demo tentacle, but you had to make sure it didn't hit the engineer that jumped off the tentacle after.
Yeah, or you would just lose the fight.
Your friendly engineer, and then the boss would be uncompletable.
Yeah. I remember that. You had to like off center the hitbox, and my group had this strategy where we'd hit it with like the fourth shot of the barrage, so that there wasn't an extra shot then to hit when the engineer landed. Yeah.
Holy shit, that's really funny. Then after they fixed that, you were able to root the gripping, root the demolisher tentacles. Yeah, you were able to root the demolisher tentacles. They didn't spawn any new tentacles, so you would just full commit gripping with the rooted demo tentacle. And then after you killed the gripping, you would kill the demo on that platform and then move over to the next platform because it wasn't like hull crack or anything.
Yeah, when they were rooted.
So fucking stupid.
Yeah.
When slam hull cracker is this game that we play is so weird. I don't know how people find these strategies sometimes.
You just, after you've done the dungeon 300 times, you just start finding shit like that. You know, it's just like the temple last boss Shroud. No one would have thought of that if it hadn't been tried randomly on like the 250th temple you did.
All right. Do you remember Toldagor cannon section throughout the years?
Yeah, I remember that not working. Yes.
Let's talk about how it was back in infested times. Here's a clip from Trell's beta plus 15 Toldagor in time. Back on beta.
It was hard to find clips of this. This was not like a very practiced run, but the strat at the time was skip most of this stuff, but use the first cannon. Like right before this clip, we'd use the first cannon. The healer would jump in and just hit the mobs whenever they had a chance, and they didn't have to heal. And that was it, because it didn't do very much damage at the time.
Yeah, so back then the cannons didn't scale with key level. So let me see if I can actually get to the part where you're using them.
Never.
But yeah, that was the skip through all the trash. Like we had a way of just CCing all the mobs that saw true sight, and only I had to die, and the rogue would shroud everyone else.
Yeah, the cannons...
those mobs those mobs were awful, and they still really are bad. Like their health to count ratio was just horrible, and that's ultimately why that dungeon got buffed to a 36-minute timer.
Yeah,
and the cannons got changed.
Did you see how little the Marine's health was moving there when it was getting shot by the cannon? Man,
yeah,
it takes like actually 0 DP. It's like 2% of its health or something from every cannon shot. Back in this beta plus 15, and it would get worse as the key level got higher. So the cannons really weren't much of a strat at all. This whole area was pretty much a skip area. You would do like the rest of the dungeon. You'd do all the beach pull and everything, and you would skip this awful trash there. So Blizzard in their infinite wisdom was like, wow, Toldagor's hard. We're going to give you 3 extra minutes on the timer. And also, we are going to make the cannon shots scale with key level.
And unlimited.
Yeah, well, they were still unlimited. They had always been unlimited up to that point. And so we got this beautiful, beautiful new cannon case. This is Season 2 from Trell. The first time he rerolled the Prot Warrior and everybody hated him for it. Where he would...
the first time, yes.
Yeah.
Like you can see, we've already cleared a lot of this trash. We're playing like from the side rooms at this point because it's just so free.
Oh, yeah. You only needed 35% enemy forces. You only need 35% enemy forces to be able to go all the way up to the very top.
Yeah, you just basically the strategy went. Yeah.
The strategy went beach pull, big beach pull, like most of your count beach pull. Just how like you would skip the middle floor. You'd skip like everything. You would just get your buffs, and then Jess Hallis floor. You killed like what was absolutely mandatory there, and then you're just all the way up.
Yeah. I remember we would trigger our second reaping wave with the cannons, which is 40%. Yeah,
we triggered like 3 different reaping waves here. I think we just farmed count at this cannon for like 10 minutes.
Okay, do you remember very early on when you could hit the reaping spirits before they became active, and you just wouldn't get reaping waves either?
Yeah, that's right.
They changed that. But you could actually still knock them back with the cannons before they spawned. But yeah, you just one tap the reaping waves with the cannons pretty effectively.
So you would death run all the way up to this cannon area, right? You wouldn't actually kill anything, or maybe you would kill those 2 mobs, that officer marine.
You'd kill very little, yeah. I think you would maybe kill, but you could just shoot those.
I want to say you death skipped because there was that hallway pack that you couldn't skip otherwise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some groups would pull it,
skip that,
and some would skip it. And yeah, you would just, this area it was just so free. Even if your tank died, you just had infinite cannon shots as long as you kept the person alive. You would just, it's whatever. None of it matters.
Your rogue would retrick somebody else, and the rogue would be like, line, it's fine.
So then Blizzard, in their infinite wisdom, decided that this was not okay, which was smart. So they nerfed the cannons, not necessarily the way that I would have done, but they made it so they had 5 shots. And this actually led to some... It made Toldagor a pretty weird dungeon for the rest of the expansion, in that, like, wow, there was a lot of pressure on just how you use those 5 cannon shots. I actually didn't mind it. I thought it was kind of a cool, I felt like that was a good direction to take it from where Season 2 was. I would still rather not have them play such a big impact on the dungeon, but...
Well...
Yeah.
That dungeon is ungodly hard for pugs, even still.
Right.
No, that's the
downside,
I think
yeah.
It's fine for us coordinated groups, but for pugs, that's just like impossible. Like you have to be a rogue to get in the cannon, basically in a pug.
Yep.
You have to have really good coordination with the rest of the group and not shoot your tank. The entire group basically has to like line of sight constantly and CC and do all sorts of things that you can't really
move the barrel.
But yeah, with this high coordination strategy, we figured out that even with our 5 shots, which is only enough to kill like one pack with one set of enemies with 1 shot left over, that could be a large set of enemies using stuff like Ring of Frost, Ring of Peace, AoE stuns and stuff. And
versus Vortex.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it went from instead of being like a drip of medium-sized pulls into the cannons, you do as much as you possibly could with each cannon to get huge amounts of count there. And that was a clip from just 2 short days ago of Trell doing that in 28. So very cool. The past meets the present in our show here.
Yeah, it's fun to see it like fully develop like that.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on to Ataldazar. Wow, Ataldazar has changed a lot over time. Ataldazar was one of the easiest dungeons at the start of the expansion. Back in the very beginning... Do you remember what we used to do with swords back in the early days?
Yeah, we used to fight them straight up.
We used to just attack them. I don't know why we thought this was okay, but we thought there were just these hostile enemies in the dungeon that we could walk into and start hitting with our abilities, and that somehow that would work out for us. And back in season 1,
watch how much damage they do already in season 1.
Yeah,
it's insane.
what's happening to those health bars? Man, this is a 16 key. It is Trell first and NA first 16 though by Trell. I think Ataldazar was where I got my Realm first 15 as well. This is an easy dungeon back then.
The world first 15 was also done on Ataldazar by the Excel team, which was like Divine and Syrah and Harudra and them. And you want to know something interesting? I watched that VOD back the other day. They ethically played Juggernauts.
Yeah,
they ethically played fucking Juggernaut Colossus pack.
I did that. I did that too in my
They manually kicked every single cast from the Confessor and let the auger go through.
Yeah, they let Wildfire go through. It's crazy how all that stuff changes. I don't think there's a single snap spot that we used in season 1 until people started figuring him out in season 2.
Syrah was manually dodging the Juggernaut charges with like port and shit, and he had Doru pre-soulstone him in case he died, which he inevitably died at the fucking Juggernaut charge because he's like 10 yards away from the mobs.
All right, so then our world was dramatically changed. I remember the first week when this strategy started spreading like a wildfire, one could say, throughout Ataldazar routes. Everybody started using it. This is the snap that started it all. I don't know if this is where it was first done, but this was the first snap that everybody started using back in season 2. And you'd get on that spot and you'd pull the swords. And this is pretty similar to what we do nowadays, except nowadays we do it with like tricks and stuff. Yeah. Morning fires off his shroud there for the rest of the group, I guess, as the swords run by. And then Trell transcends to the spot and snaps 3 packs of swords all at once. And then instead of everybody dying to the swords, which you would have done, they just die instead because they only hit Trell.
Now the swords became efficient and no longer were Colossuses fought ever again.
Yep.
And this is actually really common. If there's ever a way to make a pack of mobs that does heavy group damage into only damaging the tank, that's always the play. No matter what, that's always the play.
Yeah, because it's very possible for Ironbark to save 1 person. It's not very possible for Ironbark to save 5 people. That's the big thing I've learned about Ironbark.
I would need a little bit stronger of a cooldown to be able to fight Sards manually, man.
True. All right, then in season 4, there's a full range of different snaps that groups have, including some pretty cool ones like this snap spot that is used sometimes for Sanguine in particular. Sanguine drops above you on that first snap spot, but tanks can still pull, particularly Brewmaster tanks like you're seeing Trell here, can still pull it themselves. Otherwise, hunters or rogues can do it with tricks or misdirect, and you'll see how much faster that looked, how they didn't need to commit a shroud to this one.
Yeah, you can tell I've done it many times by this point.
Yeah, you can just see how much more polished the strategy is than the season 2 version. You can like this is how the dungeons get done at higher levels and faster and safer. And I definitely bet if we could go back to earlier seasons, we would have higher keys done at all.
I
of
love
them.
that. I love that Sebek is typing in chat. He goes, I was wondering the other day what it would be like to do an atoll without any snaps, and then Shift chimes in. We need to see a top team running a completely ethical atoll on a high key level.
They
Zero
would get
stats.
destroyed, dude. You have to snap spot almost every single pull in that dungeon.
Yeah, actually, you don't have to do the Juggernaut. The Juggernaut snaps. I don't think Gingy. I think Gingy dodges those even in 2020.
You can
it's
dodge
not worth,
those, but it's not as
worth
efficient.
dodging on bolstering or on bursting. It's not worth dodging on bursting. It's worth dodging on sanguine because you don't want the Juggernauts to be in melee.
All right, let us move on to the Templus of Thralis. This is one where we have an active big bug currently in the dungeon, but it's actually not always. It has been more bugged in the past than it's been right now, that last boss encounter, which is impressive, because right now there's a pretty impactful bug there. So let's start by setting the stage. That last boss, first of all, groups figured out very early on that you were supposed to pull trash into the last boss. That was like a month 1 development, is that when you got that buff, you pulled trash into it and you skip the trash before then.
That was very smart. Like, honestly, that's just like a normal play.
At some point in Season 1, people discovered that boss buff did not go away. You could just leave a Hexer casting on the last boss and just go backwards throughout the whole dungeon. You needed to open the gates if you wanted to get there. If you wanted to not kill any trash, you had to open the gates in Mythic 0 all the way through. Yep. So you would clear the dungeon in Mythic 0, start the Keystone, shroud 3 times to get to the last boss, basically. And then you would just do the last boss, and you could do it on pretty much any key level. And as long as you beat the last boss to the phase where you got the Invuln, you would then just go and do the whole dungeon in reverse. It would take you like 5 minutes. You could do Galv with like letting him free cast and not soaking at all. You could do anything you wanted with all the rest of the dungeon because you had like 95% reduced damage taken. And you would just go through and steamroll the rest of the dungeon. And then somebody would just like go and then finish off the last Hexer. And yeah.
You know what? Did Ethical Dratnos hate this one too?
Yeah, I didn't use this strategy. And Raider.io actually then eventually removed all of the runs that used it as well.
They're normally pretty good about removing runs that use like weird exploits like that.
Particularly quickly fixed exploits. Like if it's something where Blizzard fixes it within a week or whatever, which they did in this case, then I think Raider, like the Ludwig thing, for instance, they didn't remove those because that persisted for months and was a lot smaller of a case.
There was a time in Legion where pets and guardians were bugged to where they were doing like 700% increased damage, something just ridiculous. And people were timing just absurd keys. Raider turned off all scores until that got fixed.
I forgot it was like the day after a patch or something. And
it was the day after a patch.
Insane damage.
Oh, dude, I remember the day that the Echoing Blades trait got added to the game. For 4 hours, it was unnerfed, and I believe that you could have done like a 30 key if you had 3 Assassination Rogues and no hard boss fights at that time. They nerfed it by 70%, and it is still their best AoE trait that they still, like, you still play Assassination for first pull of Toldagor and do more damage than you would as Outlaw by playing Echoing Blades traits. They nerfed it by 70%, and it's still the best.
They DC'd all the rogues.
Yeah.
Because you had to relog to be able to get the buff, or to be able to get like the nerf implemented.
Yeah.
So they like force disconnected anybody that was logged into a rogue at the time.
Yeah, they're just
that was funny. That was really funny.
But we digress. So Avatar Centralis, back on that for a bit. Season 2 and 3 were kind of the normal strat for the boss that we all got used to over the course of the expansion. Season 4 is then when we got to the real good stuff, the new good stuff. Here's a clip of, I think we've talked about this last week as well. This is pretty much the same clip, but this is the Shroud Strat. Here's from Sebek's stream, Sebek XDXD, where you'd shroud the boss such that the Hexers could not cast Taint on it. It would get stealth, and so all the Hexer Taint casts would get invalidated. And then instead of this boss fight doing the pulse AoE damage, instead of the boss fight spawning Witch Doctors, none of that would happen. The Hexers would just follow you around, not melee, and the boss would be healable, and you could just do this whole thing super easy and actually fight 2 awakened enemies with the boss as well.
Yeah, it's actually so insane. If you do it right, the boss doesn't do the AoE pulse because it stops doing that pulse once it enters the intermission after phase 1.
I
So
actually
you're
think
technically already in that intermission.
it's astonishing to me that people were messing it up, because I realize how easy it kind of is now that I've seen it like a couple of times. Basically, the criteria is you have to have the shroud active and you have to cloak the pulse, and like that's literally it.
Yep.
That's actually all you have to do, and I don't know how.
I mean, it's
people
always easy to
fucked
say
it
in
up a lot.
hindsight.
Well,
like,
you also need to not
this
get
strat's
meleeed
easy,
by
but-
anything.
You need to not get, your tank needs to not troll you and let you get meleeed by an awakened mob or a heart guardian.
There are 3 mobs that can kill you that spawn in different spots all at the same time. Like,
Yeah, fair.
that does it's reasonable for that to go wrong. You do have Vanish to help you a little bit against it, but like there's a lot of technical, it requires you to press some buttons in a kind of weird sequence, and that is always hard to get right. But yeah, it is definitely reproducible 100% of the time if you know what you're doing. All right, so that strategy is something that exists right now. It's existed for a month and a half, 2 months now.
Yeah, something like
2
that.
months, something like that. And
I think it's really interesting that it took this long, the X-Pack, to find. It's like, we definitely could have been doing that from season 1, I'm sure. But since we, for one, used Shroud to get down there until this season, it was probably just like never put through a rogue's mind to test
I mean,
independently.
we've
of
had
the Shroud
Shrouds
before the
in
boss.
season 2. We had 3 rogues in that dungeon, or 2 rogues.
Yeah, that's
at
a
least.
good point.
So
I'm
we had a
surprised we
Shroud.
didn't find it in season 2.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things that you don't think of it. Like, why would you use Shroud there? That's until you know that it bugs the boss. It's not something that crosses anybody's mind. And this is exactly the kind of thought process that, like, just trying out random abilities like Shroud in particular is one that you should just try that on like every boss fight in Shadowlands. Just see what it does. See if it does something weird at different spots, and maybe it will. All right, let's move on to the Underrot. Do you remember season 1 Elderly Axa?
Well,
Yeah.
first off, we have, even before that, we had season 1 Shroud before
Yeah.
that was added to the matrons.
Yeah. So you could just Shroud this whole thing. You would sap that first maggot, you would Shroud, and you would just walk down through here. You just walk on down. You didn't have to do any of this trash.
Yeehaw.
You didn't care about which side had 2 chosen blood matrons. That didn't matter to you at all. That was functionally identical. You were never pulling that nonsense anyways. And just bang. That whole first area was skipped. Blizzard eventually changed this so that they, like, all those mobs had true sight basically, and some would auto get in combat with you if you walked to a certain point, which was super fun.
Also, notice in this clip, I actually did a timer for this first boss of Underrot. Now this boss is like the easiest boss in the game, but at the time, it was the tightest DPS check in every dungeon.
Yep, you're gonna see it.
You had to kill this boss in 50 seconds, or else you died.
Yep, and 103 seconds into this VOD, she spawns 2 ads and kills 2 members of Trell's party, because she would incrementally spawn more ads, basically. So the first time she spawned ads, she spawned 1. Second time, she spawned 2, and that's basically your run is done. So, like Trell said, you had up until the 2 ads spawned to be able to kill the boss, and this is the point where you had Mistweaver monks were kind of meta, so you had Mistweavers going Windwalker for the first boss. You had fucking Resto Druids going Moonkin for the first boss, and it's just like,
yeah, it was crazy.
Because healing didn't matter here, yeah.
Then the healers would like zone out of the instance, or like they would kill themselves, zone out of the instance, and then like invis pop back or something stupid.
Yeah, so here we're about to see it, the Blood Mirror, the second cast. 2 ads spawn.
It's so scary.
And this is Monka-esque point right, everybody dead.
Every one of these mobs does like
It's one shot.
triple someone's HP with a bolt.
Yeah, because this is when bolts are scaling or double.
They double
dipping with
scaled.
their scaling.
Yeah. They were like percent health, and in the same way that Painful Motivation like double dip scaled or something. So Spell Reflect was super OP back then against them.
Mm-hmm. But nobody played Prot Warrior.
Nobody played Prot Warrior that season. Yeah, but it was OP after that for a while. So here's season 2 Elderly Axa that we can watch now. Yeah, this is again from Trell on the season 2 Prot Warrior. You still could skip the mask section, although I think that at this point you had to actually maybe do the first pulls. And then yeah, Elderly Axa would just, dude, look what happened to her. Look what happens to her health on that first reflect. Oh my god. It's like 10% of her health or something per reflect. Do you remember? We don't have a clip of it, I don't think, but do you remember the 5 Prot Warrior plus 30 Elderly Axa?
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
That was on beta that people.
It was
PTR.
on TR. Or TR, yeah.
It was on TR that people.
Yeah, Limit Max went and pulled it with 5 Prot Warriors and killed it with just reflects. But yeah, it was a wild time, this boss fight. They made it so that you wouldn't get the extra effigies anymore, but the spell reflect was super duper important because it was such an omega one shot.
Did I just die to that boss?
Yeah, you did.
Weird.
I didn't see what killed you, but unfortunately, I think you just bricked a reflect as well, maybe.
Oh, did you brick reflect? I thought he got hit by the creeping rot for some reason.
Yeah,
I don't know.
man.
I didn't see.
For anybody
That
wanting
could've been
some
someone
video
missing a
evidence
kick,
of
though,
why Trell plays Brewmaster and not Brat Warrior, here's the
No.
footage you need.
Because he's floor pop. He's so mad.
Dude, this was actually, it was such a wild boss fight. Did you guys know, by the way? Oops. Wait. Okay.
What did you just do?
All right, I'm stupid. I pressed the wrong scene, but we're back. Dude, I'm trolling extremely hard. Anyways, do you remember like Death Knights could grip the mirror images, but you couldn't seize them with anything else? So like in season 1, you actually had a little bit longer if you were playing Death Knight on that first boss because you could mass grip the next 2 spawn and you could like grip kick, and so you actually got another like 5 or 10 seconds before everybody died on that. But yeah, that was so rough. All right, so they eventually changed it so the spell reflect was a little bit less OP on that boss. It's still good. It still does like 3% of its health.
Okay, well, it used to do 3% of its health, or it did 45% of the ad's HP whenever you would reflect the bolt back into it.
Mm-hmm.
Something just absurd. So you'd always reflect the ad's bolt because you didn't have enough kicks for both at once or whatever.
Yeah, it was about a 67% nerf apparently to Blood Bolt damage. So yeah, it went from 10% of the boss's health to like 3. And notably, it made it so it didn't one-shot your tank anymore. So it no longer became super crucial to kick all the Blood Bolts. Back in seasons 1 and 2, you would just, if a cast ever went through, it was over. You were dead on the axis. And now that's really not true. You can have it kind of chain cast on the tank, and they're usually kind of fine.
Yeah, I can.
The boss
like
is a 3 melee kick. Yeah, the boss is a 3 melee kick rotation. So it's like hard to be able to get correctly, anyways, right?
If you didn't have like grips for the ad and you had a lot of melee, like you needed to nuke that ad down because otherwise you were going to run out of kicks. Yeah, it was really really rough.
Maybe it's 2 melee kick rotation with fucking double rogue or something.
Dude,
that boss fight I think is the most different from season 1 to season 4. In my opinion.
Do you just remember the experience of like trying to stack shield wall, last stand, spell reflect, or not spell reflect, but shield wall, last stand, demo shout, and like still dying to embark and still dying to a blood bolt.
One shot through that.
Yeah, you're just like, man, how did that happen?
Not fair.
All right, we've got a couple of dungeons left here. Let's move on to King's Rest. We've Shadow of Zool. A good little history lesson here. Do you remember old Shadow of Zool? Back in season 1, you could actually knock Shadow of Zool. There's some Ring of Peace on Shadow of Zool, yeah?
Yeah, he was really easy to kite because of this. You could like keep him in place and be exactly at the 30-yard threshold where you could go in and out.
Okay, so what I remember a lot about Shadow of Zool is Blood Death Knights would take the... What is it? The Beastmaster, the archer guy, and they would use the piercing shot. Yeah. They would use the
they would just knock him all the way down the stairs.
Yeah, they would knock him down the stairs, and if you knocked him onto the stairs, then all of those puddles that you see right there would be Z-axis, just regardless of where you're standing on the stairs.
Yeah, this is even back in season 1, this thing hurt. But it hurt nothing like it does now.
Yeah, it actually looks like I'm taking no damage compared. This is a high key in season 1.
Yeah, it was a 20.
Like nothing.
That's like that. I think I didn't do a 20.
That's the highest king dress that was done.
Yeah, that was the top level basically in that season.
The part of the problem though is like your healer wasn't able to top you.
Mm-hmm.
So while you're not taking as much damage, his relative healing power is also substantially lower.
Right. If you were at 30% health, you were not 1 global away from topped like you are in the current season.
Yeah.
All right. So in season 3. A new strategy was developed that completely removed Shadow of Zool from the video game. This was the Demon Hunter skip on Shadow of Zool. So you would just walk around Shadow of Zool with Shroud. You actually didn't even need Shroud for this if you didn't have it. You could use like a Darkmoon Seesaw to get past the brazier on the left. Yeah. But yeah, you'd get through here, and then everybody would just hang out by the gate, and your Demon Hunter could double jump over and pull the boss, and then you could auto it through the wall and reset
this one from my POV. There's a much better clip from any demon hunter who's done this.
Yeah, Evade's
But
perspective
that's
in the
the
group as
gist of
well
it.
as you can see the demon hunter process of like double jump backflipping over the wall off of like the candlestick spot
Yep.
into the thing, and yeah, that was really 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 good because Shadow Zool sucked. They nerfed it since then. They nerfed its damage by 6%.
No, they nerfed its health.
Oh wait,
They nerfed its health.
they nerfed its health. Its damage is totally fine. I forgot. Its health was
Yeah,
nerfed
yeah.
by 6%. Yeah.
It'd be cool if someone
Because
could
his health was why that
compile.
was inefficient.
I wish there was some compilation out there of all the nerfs that have been done to Zool since its inception, because there have been like at least 7 nerfs to that thing, and he's still the most overpowered mob in all the dungeons combined.
Well, now people just kite him.
Yeah, often. Well, I mean, some people in pretty high keys still face tank him all the way through, even prot warriors. And one of the things about Shadow Zool is that prot warriors get hit the hardest by him because he's just pure magic damage. He does still auto as well, and if prot warriors aren't putting anything into shield block on that fight, then the autos actually also really hurt too. And you're just like, it's so sketch on that spec. So yeah, people will like do a dead zone kiting thing on him, but it's still nasty compared to skipping it. All right, let's move on to Waycrest Manor.
I couldn't think of much in here. I think the biggest difference was like season 1, people really didn't know snap spots, and so the Gloom Horror pole was really interesting to me. I had to like really optimize every time they jumped. I'd have to be at range and have a movement speed buff so I could dodge their jump.
Yeah, so this is the Ring of Peace for the first jumps. Although even then, some of them are still getting their damage through, like they do.
We're all idiots.
Yeah,
for manually playing these mobs.
There's trees, and now watch this. Trell's gonna roll out.
This is really cool.
They get vortexed back in though on this one.
So they're targeting me because I'm farthest target. I take no damage, and then we're back in. I think I have to do one more set, and then they die.
Yeah, so this is going to be the one you're actually going to have to dodge because you don't have ring or vortex. And yeah, there's a typhoon coming out, and you're just like torpedoing and running as quick as you can. Even still, you're getting hit by most of these. But you have bark up, and they're staggered, and they're not meleeing you very much. So yeah, this is the old Gloomhorror strat. You just run around in circles and kite them. And and you still died at the end. Yep.
I still die, yeah.
Yep.
Those mobs are not fair.
That is life without snap spots in a nutshell, for sure.
As I said, we're idiots.
Do you remember back in early days as well, the maggots in Waycrest Manor would do sanguine and bolstering and bursting on death affixes? Mm-hmm. Not just them, but in Shrine of the Storm, the little blobbies would do it as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the blobs with like the second and like fourth pulls of Shrine, typically you just have like 20 seconds of bursting.
Yeah, from all the little animated droplets. They had this patch where they rebalanced that, although for some reason they never hit Minion of Zool or Tidesage Initiates, which those are the mobs that are, to me, are pretty offensive that they still do the on-death affixes.
Yeah, do you remember back in Season 1 whenever Minions of Zool did on-death affixes? Really happy that they fixed that.
Kappa. But yeah, the droplets, man, the droplet bursting was so scary, actually.
Yeah, that and Sanguine, actually. They would all drop so much Sanguine.
Although there actually is still nonsense that happens with droplets. Do you guys know this mage nonsense where they scuff mages ignites? Corpses will mess up mage ignite proliferation, and
because they're target capped.
Yeah,
it's due to okay. So there's a target cap in the game which currently exists, which is 20 targets, but for some reason corpses also count to the target cap for mages ignite spreading.
Yeah, so it's just if you do a big pull with a lot of droppies, the droppies will just keep eating up the ignites and.
But what if we just got rid of mages?
Yeah, I mean that is something that that may be happening in Shadowlands. Perhaps at least some of the mages I know are thinking of not playing it next expansion. So we'll see.
I hope they pick Moonkin.
I don't know if they'll do that, but if any of the good ones do, you might be out of a guide writer job for sure.
Man. All right. What the hell?
Low blow. Unschedule that flame.
Oh, that's true. There was an unscheduled flame. I think there are a lot of scheduled ones too, though. So I think it all balances out. I think I owe Titles something like 3,000 flames from the scheduled Titles flame reward.
Anytime I go drat this chat, it's just insta.
Yeah.
Unavoidable. It's just like fucking sea of flames scheduled.
Oh yeah, it's great.
All right.
So that's the end of our little trip down memory lane. That's all the history we came up with. There's more, but there's actually a lot more. It's always fun to talk about this kind of stuff. And if you guys enjoyed this episode, let us know, and we can maybe scrounge up enough for another one, actually, because there's so much from these earlier dungeons too that we can maybe talk about.
It would be hard to make a part 2, but this is really fun.
Yeah, or even like a Legion version as well, if we can remember that far back. But man, honestly, one thing that I've realized from this is how much my memory is like I would not have remembered a lot of the stuff that we had to actually go and watch these clips to remember these strategies in a lot of these dungeons.
I watched I had to watch like YouTube videos and just be like, wait, we're so stupid. Why did we do this?
Yeah.
And it's just like,
yeah, there's a lot of shit. I was looking for something in a specific video of mine, and then I'd watch more of the video and be like, oh, this is actually more interesting. I'll just use this other part of the video I forgot about.
Yeah.
The skipping Shrine of the Storm thing actually just caught me off guard. How many ritualists were played? Because they also played the left ritualist and opened up the skip that I don't think anybody's ever used.
Yeah.
I think that was largely because of Sub Rogue. Like all those rituals come with Sub Rogue funnel with them.
You wouldn't purge the sailors, and you would just sub them down. God, Sub Rogue was nice.
Maybe slightly more efficient then.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly. Probably not actually, but Sub Rogue really wanted to do it, so we were like, fine, give in to the Rogue.
So we actually don't have QA for the show, but Gabe typed something in chat that I think is interesting that we could talk about a little bit. He says, I think you're going to see the meta evolve a lot faster in Shadowlands.
I think so too.
That is correct? Because
I thought
that are into BFA, and I feel like it didn't.
Well, I think it still evolved faster than Legion. Like people figured out how to kick things and manage them better instantly, but I don't think they figured out the environmental stuff very quickly. I think this time in Shadowlands, people will find the environmental stuff a lot faster, or like random weird things like the Shroud on Temple.
I think one thing that'll really push it is actually when the first MDI of Shadowlands is, or what the MDI
it always
looks
does.
like. Because like in BFA, we didn't get a Season 1 MDI. So for Season 1 of M+, there was actually not too much like heavy pressure on coming up with like spots, because a lot of cool strategies that are used even in high keys start from this pressure cooker of MDI practice, where you're like trying every spot in a dungeon, or you try pulling stuff on a boss and you're like, hey, this actually isn't that bad.
And part of it too is that MDI, like while you're practicing, you have unlimited attempts to try a bunch of random shit. So you'll never know if like, do you really want to kite this pack in full? Do you think that this snap spot on this bench randomly is going to be good? Am I going to MD the whole entire dungeon into Razan? Normal things.
Yeah. So those kind of strategies, I think, depending on when the first Shadowlands MDI is, that will be, I think, a huge Kickstarter into the innovation cycle for Shadowlands. Because the thing is, when Shadowlands launches, even all the high end plussers, a lot of them are going to be busy with raid and stuff. A lot of them are going to be busy just like learning their new class and things. And for that reason, I think that at the start of the new expansion, it will be fairly like even the first few months are like there will be a lot of stuff that you're learning about in the new dungeons, but there's just such a huge wealth of new information to pick up that like the actual like fine tuning of strategies in M+, I think it's going to be much more of like doing that first 80% of the work rather than that last 20%.
First 15s are always going to be really bad strategies all the way until you get that first MDI, and then strategies are going to start getting better. And people are also talking in chat about mobs not really snapping in Shadowlands, and that's because that they haven't coded that in yet, if I had to really guess.
I think BFA was similar. The mobs didn't have their snapping functionality. Like Blizzard didn't decide what mobs were going to do with regards to snapping until pretty late in the cycle. And I think that's going to be similar in Shadowlands, right? Because like the default behavior for a mob that doesn't have hard coding is that it will evade and then reset. And they have to like hard code in stuff to snap them to you or you to them if it's supposed to behave not like that. And I don't know, maybe they'll decide that they don't want snapping in Shadowlands and they just don't code anything like that. But at this point, it could definitely still be snapping, even if none of the stuff on beta does, because that's what it was in BFA.
That's a good point. I forgot that they changed behavior of dungeons over time. Like at some point they made mob snap to you in a tell. At some point they made awaken mobs in season 4 snap to you.
It's a mob by mob basis too. It is a mob by mob basis
because Ataldazar has some mobs that snap you to them. Ataldazar has the that first pull on the left snaps you to them, not it doesn't snap to you, as anybody who's tried to snap it will learn.
And the awaken mobs are a perfect example of that. Is like they want to be snapped. Like they always want, like their utmost and highest priority is being snapped to you. So I mean, Reaping was the same way. Reaping wanted to snap to you as well.
All right.
Yeah, true.
I think that about does it for our show this week. This is a fun one though. We'll be back next week with another one, but for now, later everybody.
Later
guys.